Hey, so this is my new channel, or really my first channel, that I'm going to be talking about African geopolitics, African history from a Pan-African perspective. So today's topic is going to be about the industrialization of Africa. So, what if I told you three African nations are shaking up the world by saying no more to Western control? Welcome to my channel, where we deep dive into Pan-African geopolitics daily. Today we're unpacking how Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, through the Alliance of Sahel States, also called AES, are fighting neo-colonialism in 2025. Stick around to see how they're rewriting Africa's future. Subscribe and let's get started. Sorry about my cat, my kitten. So, what exactly is neo-colonialism? It is the modern way powerful nations, mostly Western ones like the UK and the US, and France, in this case, it's mainly France, but also the UK and America, keep control of Africa with old school colonies. Think of it as influence through money, military, and manipulation. Let's break it down. So, back in the 1960s, nations like Mali gained so called independence from France. But freedom on paper didn't mean true freedom. France kept a tight grip through the CFA franc, a currency tied to the French treasury. Imagine this: Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso can't control their money supply, and other CFA countries as well, like Guinea and Togo. They're also CFA countries. France can't control their money supply. France holds 50% of their foreign reserves in Paris. That's billions of dollars. 10 billion dollars across CFA zones in 2023 out of African hands. This is money that will be very important to benefit our nation. Then there's military control. France stationed thousands of their troops in the Sahel under in their so-called operation to fight terrorism. But many Africans saw it as an occupation. Why? Because France protects its interest, like Niger's uranium, which powers 70% of France's electricity, while communities stayed poor. In 2022, 80% of Niger, lived on less than $2 a day, despite their country fueling French lights, and they have no lights in their own country. And don't forget economic deals. Western corporations like Total Energy sign contracts that give African nations crumbs. Burkina Faso's gold mines produced 2 billion in 2023, but foreign firms took 70% of profits. This is neo-colonialism. African resources, Western gains. The AES, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso said enough. Obviously, everyone knows about Ibrahim Traore. He's the hero of Africa. These nations formed the Alliance of Sahel States in 2023 to reclaim their sovereignty. Why does this matter? Because it is a bold step towards an Africa that controls its destiny, inspiring the continent to unite against external domination. So let's dive into how the AES is fighting neo-colonialism head-on. These three nations aren't just talking, they're acting. First, kicking out foreign troops. In 2022, the government, led by Assimi Goïta, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correct, expelled French forces after decades of presence. They said we don't need France to secure our land. Burkina Faso followed in 2023, ending French military agreements. Niger went even bigger, closing France and US bases, including a 100 million US drone base in Agadez. The AES leaders argue foreign troops prioritize Western interests and not Sahel safety. Second, also the drone bases and the Western bases, what they do is they pretend to help and fight against so-called terrorism, but really they supply them with weapons. So they'll say, okay, we're gonna fight them, and then behind closed doors they'll like airdrop some weapons to them to keep them fighting. So they're playing both sides because the Western world doesn't want Africa to be free. They want us to be in a continuous state of war so they can control us easier. Next, so after they kicked out French and US troops and stuff, the AES have been reclaiming resources. Niger made headlines in 2023 by halting uranium exports to France. This was huge because Niger supplies 7% of global uranium. The government demanded better terms, saying our wealth must benefit our people. Faso's Ibrahim Traore nationalized the gold mines, increasing local profits from 20 to 40% in 2024. Mali pushing similar reforms, auditing foreign mining contracts to ensure fair deals. So Ibrahim Traore initially nationalized 2 gold mines. Now he's done 5, so which is very good. So it's what they're doing in reclaiming our resources. They haven't finished. We still have a long way to go, but they're on the right path. Third, rethinking currency. The CFA franc is a neo-colonial chain. In 2024, AES leaders announced plans to explore a Sahel currency, free from French control. This isn't easy. ECOWAS and French slapped sanctions, fearing a domino effect, but the AES holding firm, inspired by Pan-African thinkers like the great Kwame Nkrumah, who dreamed of a united economy. These actions aren't just local; they're Pan-African signal. By defying the West, the AES shows Africa can say no to exploitation. Imagine Nigeria or Kenya following suit. These countries have bigger economies. But it's not all smooth sailing. Plus, they have access to the sea, which is probably one of the biggest issues the ES has. Sanctions hurt. Mali's GDP dropped by 2% in 2022 due to trade restrictions, and replacing Western aid isn't simple. Still, the area's courage is sparking hope across the continent. So, how does the AES fight against neocolonialism and fuel Pan Africanism? Let's break it down. First, inspiring sovereignty. The AES's defiance of France and the West is a blueprint for African nations. When Niger halted uranium exports, it showed resource-rich countries like the DRC, home to 60% of the global cobalt, how to demand fair deals. In 2024, Sudan expressed interest in AES-like policies, hinting at a growing anti-neo-colonial wave spreading across Africa. This aligns with Pan-African Pan-Africanist core self-determination for all Africans. Second, regional unity. The AES is a mini African Union. It's really what the African Union should have been, proving small blocs can work together. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Hopefully, other countries will join as well soon. Chad said they want to join, and Togo. These countries, the AES share intelligence, trade, military training, bypassing ECOWAS, which you see as Western influence, that could inspire other regions like East Africa and Southern Africa to form tight-knit alliances, strengthening the continent's bargaining power. Third, global respect. By standing up to the West, the AES is forcing the world to see Africa differently. In 2024, AES leaders attended BRICS summit, securing deals with both Russia and China. 3 billion in Nigeria's infrastructure alone. This shifts Africa from a Western pawn to a player in a multipolar world, echoing Pan-African calls for global equality. But there's a catch: the West isn't happy. France and the US pushed sanctions through ECOWAS, cutting AES trade by 2023. Poverty rates already high at 70% in Burkina Faso could worsen if new partners like China don't deliver. Still, the AES resolve shows Pan Africa isn't just talk, it's action. So even though the West has put sanctions on us, we can move east and start trading more with China and Russia, and we need to trade internally within our own country, within our borders. Africa needs to trade with Africa, and we have lots of resources. So we don't really need to rely on foreign aid. Foreign aid is just a way for the West to control us. So it's never something that we should be relying upon. The AES fight is bold, but it's not without hurdles. Let's look at the challenges and what's next. First, economic pressure. Sanctions from ECOWAS and the West hit hard. Nigeria's exports dropped to 20% in 2023, raising food prices. As I said, we need new markets. Russia and China are stepping in. But can they replace Western aid? That's the billion-dollar question. Of course they can, over time. Second, internal stability. Terrorism is a real threat. The JNIM attacks killed 2,000 people in Mali in 2024, which is obviously supported by the West. And since the AES has become, these terrorist groups have stepped up attacks against us. But obviously that's expected because like I said before, they're controlled by the West. The West funds them, gives them money, provides weapons to them, gives them intelligence. Because Nigeria kicked out like because Nigeria kicked out America from the drone base in Nigeria, they're now building a drone base in what's the country again? The Ivory Coast. So they're going to use that obviously to um like I said, weapon drops and provide intelligence. So it's not a good thing for them to do. So like our force, like the AES forces, joint forces are stretched thin without obviously decent logistics. The security is obviously like the security isn't good in these places, but we do have Russian help, and since Russia has joined us, we have gained more villages. I mean, helping us, we have taken over more villages and gained more of our country back from these terrorist organizations, these Western-backed terrorist organizations. So it's something we need to do. Rely on Russian and Chinese military assistance initially until in the future we can start making our own weapons and start obviously having our own security. There has been like in Burkina Faso and these other nations, there is like a civil defense, defense that people volunteer. So that's another thing that has been helping us recently. So we need to keep it up. Third, we need to scale the Pan African. We need to scale the AES. The AES inspires, but can it grow? Chad and Sudan are watching, but bigger players like Nigeria are hesitant because the president is tied to the West. Building a continent-wide movement takes trust and time. But what's next? The AES plans a Sahel currency by 2026, aiming to end CFA dependence. They're also boosting local trade. Bakuno's mangoes and exports to Mali rose 10% in 2024. If they could succeed, which they will, because we need to make sure they do succeed, the AES could be a Pan-African model proving Africa can thrive without colonial powers. And we can, like, think of this, like, if the AES and other African nations do well, it would send shockwaves in the Western world. And every single time they show Africa on the news, they always show us starving. They always show us poor in poverty. So if there was at least one African nation in the world that is doing well, then we could say, okay, what about this country? What about that country? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's very, very vital for Africa. It's not just in that country, but worldwide that obviously we succeed. So that's it for today's dive into Mali, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso, how they're defying neo-colonialism through the AES. This is why Pan-African matters. It's about taking back our power. If you love this, smash the subscribe button and hit the bell. I'm gonna try to be dropping videos daily on the AES and Africa's rise. Tomorrow I'll be tackling why the AES is turning into Russia and China. You don't want to miss it. Yeah, this is a new channel, so I'm gonna try to do this. The quality and stuff will improve over time. This is my first video, so I guess it's not the best quality, but you have to start from somewhere. And I guess obviously my presentation stuff will improve over time. But yeah, you have to start from the bottom. Like Drake says, start from the bottom. Now I'm here. So I'm at the bottom at the moment, but I'm gonna rise up. Hopefully this channel will grow and can become a big channel. And peace out.